Alright, welcome back to YouTube. So I'm going to be doing kind of a review of like some of the top decks that you should be playing right now. Whether you're trying to get to higher rank, diamond rank, legend rank, whatever you're trying to do. I have a list here of some stuff that's been consistent, not consistent, and just kind of some talking points. But first things, Mighty's Rogue recently got some buffs with Really the Kid, Velorock, Windblade. So this deck has been seeing quite a bit of play, especially in like the upper diamond and legend, lobbies and stuff like that. This is a list that, it's probably okay trying out. I played it myself and I didn't really find it to be extremely good, especially against the matchup against, Treant Druid. But it's still a deck that's completely not bad to play. Your Scourge is basically, if you open up this and, to kill it, adds a 0 cost really to your hand. And if you're able to do that within the same turn, you're able to get, its Outcry and Quick Draw effect. And so it's really easy now to grind out your Scorpion and get multiple. How does I even show on there? Okay, well, but get really cheap stuff. But the problem with this deck is the randomness. Sometimes you don't get the spells you want to see, and sometimes the spells don't do anything for you, or they don't advance your gameplay, so you fall a bit short. So that's why it's kind of a hit or miss deck. It's still sitting around like a 56% win rate, but it's not completely bad. That's why I put it at 1. But really, the meta destroyer right now is Treant Druid. Now this one right now, I think across the board has like, what is it? 75% win rate over 60,000 games played through, what is this? Bronze through plat, what is that? Diamond 10? Diamond 5? Yeah, and so it's kind of destroying the meta right now. 75% win rate. But it's extremely easy to play. You just curve out and you just drop down a bunch of treants, and then eventually, you just overwhelm them with boards, and you have constant draw from this, and you have endless, summonings of treants. Now, there are cases where, you do get just absolutely controlled by some, Odin Warrior or Control Warlock or something, or even Mage, and sometimes you lose. But as of right now, there's not much board removal. They nerfed, the mech card for Mage that, there's a board depending on however many different spell schools you played. A lot of the early removal stuff has been kind of nerfed, so this is kind of the reason why this deck has kind of come up. But definitely a deck. It's very cheap. I mean, it's all commons and rares. I don't even think there's a single epic in there. Yeah, so if you're a free-to-play player, just craft this, and then you'll be at least winning, 55% of your matches anyhow. So not a bad deck. Control Warrior is the next one. This is just a simplistic Odin Warrior that's been kind of around. It kind of disappeared for about, a month and a half when the set came out. I mean, it's still been there, but, when all the Highlander stuff kind of came up, Shaman, Highlander, Hunter, even like the OTK Hunter stuff, all those decks have been kind of destroying stuff recently, or I guess not recently now, but after these recent patches. But this deck is now starting to come up as well. It's having the same type of near win rate, 75%, over 26,000 games played. Now, of course, it's kind of the win percentage kind of drops as you get into the higher ranks. Or when you get to Legend, it's still higher. It's still above 60% win rate. But it's still a very solid deck to play. You just play all your stuff, and you get Odin on as fast as you can, and you just beat them down with your armor stuff. It's basically the same thing. It's still a very strong deck. Earthen Paladin, it recently received some nerfs, Prismatic Blade and Keeper Strength, but it's still, making its way through the meta. And it's still extremely strong. You still have your Showdown Prismatic Beam effects. The only problem is it's now just extra mana than what it used to be. So they basically slow down the deck by a turn or two, which I think was kind of reasonable with it. Honestly, I felt like Garden's Graves was more of the problem rather than the Prismatic Beam Showdown combo thing that they had. But there are times when they played Showdown and they weren't able to clear it. So, netting the 3/3s are pretty great. But it's still a very strong deck to definitely give a shot. The deck that I kind of find the most success with is the Plague Death Knight here. It's the one deck that I feel like is just very consistent, and shuts off Highlander decks if they don't have Steam Cleaner at all. And I mean, from just Hella and getting the plagues and just constantly, healing, making the stuff cost more, and just summoning up a board, opening this card just really shoots up your win rate. And on top of the whole Excavate feature too that got added to them, all that, like the Azurite Rat's really lovely card, especially with Reska, and sometimes even just getting the Chain Guardian off of that, or even Primus, is very big. And it's just a very strong mid-range deck. I mean, you just curve out very well, and you play, and then overwhelm your opponent. Still a very strong one. And this is the deck that I kind of always play when it comes to grinding. I mean, I didn't hit legend rank yet, but I was sitting at Diamond 1, Diamond 2, playing this list, and eventually I started playing other lists to make new content, and I lost my ranking, unfortunately. But I still love the Plague Death Knight deck, and it's still extremely strong. Tomb Raider or Tomb Trader is extremely good, and especially against the Tree matchup, you could definitely win against Treant Druid with Plague Death Knight, I feel like, over some other decks. Sif is another one. This is the Excavate version with Blast Mage Miner. The whole, Excavate package. You basically do everything else. You just play, roll the board until you get to your Sif. The pure version of, a Sif is still a very strong version too. This one I just really enjoy because of the Miner. Sometimes since a lot of these decks are control decks, except for, Treant Druid, they don't really have very many stuff on the board, and so a lot of times you're sending 8 to 10 damage to face, and sometimes you just win off of that. So it has ways to be very aggressive early on. It has ways to kind of OTK, so not a very bad deck to try out. Dragon Druid is still very good even after the recent nerfs. Split Splash Whelp going down from 2 attack to 1. The Nestromatron, or however you pronounce that, went from 5 HP to 4 HP. Still does its whole shenanigans. You just curve out as well as you can, buff up stuff, and you just try and cheat out your Dragon Golems as early as possible, and they don't have any type of early removal for it, and you just kind of win that way. Still has a very solid win rate even after the nerfs. Highlander Shaman is kind of, I was debating on if I wanted to add this to the video or not, because it kind of fell off completely after its Dr. Holiday's nerf here. Let me find it here. Staff went from 2 attack to 1 attack, which I really don't feel like was that big of a deal. I didn't feel like the staff was that broken, especially because, I mean, everyone runs Viper, whether it's in the main deck or in the ETC. So there's always kind of loosely a way to control this. I didn't feel like it needed, to go to 2. They could have maybe just go to 6 mana or something, but honestly, I didn't feel like this was the problem at all for Highlander Shaman. Honestly, I feel like Turn the Tides was more of a problem. That card is just irritating to play against, and the fact that they could discover multiple, ridiculous. But fell off for whatever reason. It's still a good deck. I mean, you still have your Reno, you have your Yogg, you have all your control pieces, and I mean, summing up the frogs after 5-6 turns, it just overwhelms your opponent. And Framester is also a very strong card. Shut out other Highlander decks as well. So I still think Highlander Shaman's still a deck to try, but with the recent Treant Druids running around, you might need to kind of switch up what you're running. You do have Lightning Storm Primordial Wave. So I mean, I think this deck can definitely have its chance against the Treant Druid. Another one is Automation Priest. This one's still been seeing quite a bit of play. Rodden recently got buffed up, and I mean, I still think it's all right. I just feel like if they have answers for the automation, or if you don't open up well, or you don't have ways to follow up after a big swing, your deck does just kind of die out. And sometimes the fact that you play your Eni, you play your Rodden, and they just have answers for it. If this was a Battlecry effect, Rodden would be on a whole other level. This deck would probably be a lot more meta than it is now, but it's still, I mean, shoot, what is its win rate right now? It's at a 70% win rate out of 24,000 games. So I mean, I think it's clearly doing something, but this is definitely in the lower ranks. It's still through, what is this? Yeah, I mean, it's still platinum through diamond through with this deck at least. The win rate, it was really low at one point. What was that? And early November, it was at a 21% win rate, and now it was at its all-time high right now. It averages about 50 to 60% rate, but it's still not a terrible deck to play. It's still fun. But it suffers like any other deck where you're just trying to play around something, and if you don't get that, you just kind of fall off. The other list is Rainbow. This is the list I was playing, and playing quite a bit. It's not terrible, honestly. I think I have kept around a 60% average, or 56% win rate with this list in upper diamond rank. I mean, I think my games were in diamond 5, but it got me to diamond 3. Of course, I dropped back down because I've been trying to play other decks, and it just hasn't been working. But Monpaw's buff was a really strange one, going from 1 attack to 2. I did have a couple games, especially in the one video. I didn't record the entire video because that game was 25 minutes long, and so I had to split it up. Just take out a part that made the most sense for the video. But if they can't touch this thing just kind of is just extra feeding into your explosion here. And the fact this got buffed up, I honestly feel like this could go down to 8 mana too, on top of the recent buffs with it, and it still would be mildly all right. But, you know, the buff to the Corpse Bride is good. Monpal, I mean, sure. You do have a lot of ways to get through a lot of these bigger decks that drop down big minions. You have crop rotation plus your sticky Grime Walker, and a lot of times it's dropping us down on 3 and then falling up on 4 with this. I found out a lot of decks just can't really deal with this, and I find this to just be a very solid. It's not completely terrible. I mean, there's times when you just completely whiff and you're not spending enough stuff, and you draw this on turn 10 and it's just not big enough. But sometimes just tempoing it out isn't the worst thing possible. Rescue being here is really great. There's been times when you could steal really big stuff. The Primus Patchwork is a good sniper. Just, you know, shred through cards that are important to them. And I mean, it's a notable mention for it's not too bad to play, but it is very expensive. So if you're new to the game, I would not craft this deck. It's not going to be very fulfilling for you. The other deck is Highlander Hunter. Again, same thing with the Highlander Shaman. This deck kind of fell off too. This is a different list than the one I was using. This one's definitely playing more into the Thunderbringer playstyle, which I don't think is terrible, but with how fast the meta is right now, this deck is very slow. And since Hunter does not have any ramping or mana cheating, this version of the list is probably not one to play. But I definitely think it's not, you know, not completely worth to not try. I think it's very strong, especially if you are able to curve out very well. I have interest with the board. If Hunter had, like, they have star power, but it's the fact to it, you know, it being 5 mana kind of slows it down. If they had any other cheaper board removal cards, like I know they have, what is the other one? Celestial Shots, I mean, it's okay. Shell Shot's not completely good. They probably, like, and like even like the Silver Serpent recently came out. There's just not much else going for him with the whole removal stuff early on. You could run Explosive Trap, which I don't even think we run that in this list, but you know, the decks kind of vary. But I'll definitely link down all the deck codes down in the description below. Yes, this is the list. I definitely think that, you know, these are the 4 that you're going to be wanting to play. Honestly, Plague, Death Knight's up there as well. These 5 right here, and the rest are kind of all right. But that's kind of my video for today. So let me know what you guys think about the meta right now and whether or not Treant Druid is just kind of ruining your day. I haven't been playing as much as I'd like because of that. I hate that I can't play their decks because I just get overwhelmed by turn 4 or 5. So I'm curious what you guys think, whether or not it's going to get nerfed or if they're just going to be another patch where they buff up more stuff and don't nerf anything. Who knows? But don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.